Hello everyone, this is Betsy from Ideas Times 2. Thank you for joining me today. It's so good to see you. Today, let's just jump right in. I have a tutorial / craft with me. It's a craft with me kind of because I haven't made you one to show you. I don't have one that I previously made. And so this is I'm gonna sort of be winging it a little bit, and you'll just come with me and we'll do this together. So that'll be perfect. All right, so let's just jump right in. My sister, Sue, wanted me to make her a calendar. So she has some things she needs to keep track of, but she didn't need a giant book or anything like that, or a big planner. And so she just wanted sort of like a checkbook sized, those inexpensive ones you can get at the dollar store. She just wanted that kind of size, but something a little nicer than the one she could buy at the dollar store. And so I'm happy to make that for her. And I thought I would make it just into a little folio, something where she's got some pockets and stuff she can use, maybe some blank paper she can use. And so I'm turning this little calendar into a folio. So it's a calendar folio is what we're going to make today. And so I've already done a few things already, but let me just explain. So this is a digital calendar that I bought, and I bought it last year, and I make these little micro mini TNs. And so I bought the digital calendar for that. And so you're able to manipulate the size a little bit on your computer, or sometimes just on your printer too. You can print at, say, if you want to make it bigger, you can print it at 125% and that type of a thing. And so I think I just did this on my computer, where I put it in a text box and just expanded it a little bit. But anyway, I got a pretty good size. So when this calendar is folded, it's 4 inches by 6 3/4, and I think she'll be happy with that. It's just a little bit wider than maybe, say, like a checkbook cover, which is, I think, the size she was going for. And so I printed out the pages. So it's a 2-page spread, and then when you fold them and put them together, then you've got the beginning of the month here and the end of the month there, and so on. And so you just put them together in a booklet form. And then I will be binding this too, but so I accidentally didn't print, so I accidentally printed them both two-sided on every single page, when I should have left a few that were only one-sided to make this a blank side to begin the calendar, so that when you open it, it's the full month. So this is actually a printed part, and I thought, well, I'll have to cover it up. But that was an accident. I wasn't thinking, because I printed them all front and back, and I should have just done one-sided for the cover part here. So anyway, I decided, and well, I'll show you the cover stuff in just a minute. So I decided I needed to cover that up and make it look a little bit nicer. And so I just had some digital pages left over from a kit that I had, and I just glued those onto the front and back, and then I reinforced this with a little strip of washi tape. So that's super simple. So now I have this size. Now I know where to go from here, like how to make what size to make the cover. And as I mentioned, I kind of wanted to give her some blank papers, and so I have put together a little signature. And once again, it's like I only had 2 or 3 sheets of this kit left over, and it just worked out perfectly for this project. So I just put together some papers. Some of them are this is actually from a different digital kit that I just had hanging around, just some leftover stuff, some eco-stained papers and plain white paper. I have some coffee-stained paper in here, coffee-stained lace paper, scrapbooking paper, so just all kinds of little papers, and I made a little signature. It's not bound yet either, but I will be doing that later. So now I've got these, and I know she doesn't want to make it a big deal, so I thought this is great. And then if I pair this with making some pockets, or maybe a fold-out pocket in the back, she'll have a nice little folio. So this is where I started. I just cut my pages the right size. Super simple gathering is basically all that was. Then originally, she never gave me a theme or any kind of, she was pretty flexible as to what it would look like, and so which I hope is good, because I hope she likes it when I'm all done with it. But I was looking through my fabric, because we did talk about fabric. I said, would you like a fabric cover or paper cover? And she did say fabric, and so I was looking for through my fabric to try to find something that would remind me of her. And I saw this antique button fabric, and I just thought, oh man, this is so cute, and it would be a great little folio. So it almost looks like, when I'm looking at it in the monitor of my camera, it almost looks like candies from here. But I did think about candies. I have to show you something. So, yeah, I splurged, but look at this. Look at these fabrics. I don't know what I'm going to make with these, but I am super excited about them. I actually did think about making this for her cover. How cute would that be? I'm just super excited about these. I don't know what I'm going to make. I might make a table runner or placemats or something, or a couple of journals. I don't know. So anyway, I thought this was super cute, and then that's why I used these papers, because they're sewing themed, but it's not like super large amount of sewing things, but it's just kind of nice touches. And so I was so glad to find these 2 pages. I literally could only find 2 papers, and then this cardstock, and I think this cardstock will go on the inside cover of the cover. So there you have it. So I'm going to make the cover out of this Triscuit box. It's a mini Triscuit box, and I've already cut it. I cut the spine. I just took the box, you know, I undid the seam and laid it all out, and I cut off this part I knew I wouldn't need. Obviously I do need another piece for the front or back, depending on how I use these. So I do have 2 little pieces here. And all I did was, so the side of the box is quite a bit wider, so I just held these up to that natural fold in the box, and I just held them up and literally drew a little bit, I drew a little line to show where to cut it, and that's all I did. So I figured this would need a 3/4 of an inch spine. So that's what I did here, and I left this intact because that makes a nice fold for the cover. And also I held these up to this piece, figuring on maybe 1/4 of an inch around each side. But then when I started thinking about it, I thought, well, how nice it would be to put a pen on the side here, make a little loop and put a pen. And so I made this edge a little bit wider. You can see my pencil mark there, and then this is like a scant 1/4 of an inch. So it's probably, I don't know, it's probably just a little bit under 1/4. So there we have that. So I am going to cut this, and then cut this the same size as the cover, not including the spine. We don't need to include that. So I'm going to cut these 2 rectangles here the same size, and then we'll start putting the cover together, which is super exciting. Okay, all cut. So I decided while I was cutting that I wanted a double layer. So these are 2 layers of, one's Triscuit, actually one's a cereal box, but so I have 2 layers of chipboard on the spine as well as the 2 covers. And so that actually worked out well, because then I could, all the printing and the bright colors are now on the inside glued together. So, but this will make a little bit of a sturdier cover, and I decided to go with that. So I put it on this black piece of paper so you could see it a little bit better, and I decided to cut the spine off of the edge so that I've got an even gap on each side of the spine. So now the next part is to glue it onto our fabric. So let me move this over here, and here's the fabric. Now I did prepare it by sort of making a book cloth, and I put a very thin interfacing on the back, which is the way I usually do it, and it's a fusible kind, so I just ironed it on, and now it fused the pieces into one sheet, one piece here. So I did use, I'm trying to find my little piece of paper. I just used what I had, so this is maybe a little thicker than I wanted it, but it'll still work just fine. I used Pellon SF101, and the main reason why I have some of that here is because I'm making a t-shirt quilt, and that's what I use to back the t-shirts. So it is like a very thin muslin almost that's fused on the back here. So I'm going to use this, and then I'll start gluing my pieces on, and then I will be wrapping around the corners. And when I wrap, I'm probably going to use a different glue, but for now I'm going to use PVA glue, and I'm going to brush it on and then lay these down flat onto my fabric. So for now I'm using PVA, but probably going to use a combination of PVA and Fabri-Tac, or whatever it is that I have. Yes, Fabri-Tac. That beacon has, I think I'm going to need more than that. Beacon has, you know, the 3 types that are sort of interchangeable. Fabri-Tac, Fabri-Fix, and 3-in-1. Alright, so it doesn't matter for me which side, so I'm just going to go ahead and paint this on with sort of a wide brush so you can kind of do it quickly. I'm going to scoot that up a little bit. Maybe I will use a piece of black paper. And then quickly, and a nice even layer. And it doesn't matter too much if I get glue on the back side of this, so I'm not too worried about that, but I am trying to be careful here. Okay, and I think it's a little dry right there. Okay. I cut my fabric, of course, just a little bit larger than what I need to give me some wiggle room. So I'm just going to plop that down and probably put a book on top of that while that sets up. I've got a book right here. Surprise, I know, right? We all have books laying around. So I'm going to put that there for now, just for the minute I am working on this other piece. So now I'm going to put my spine on, same fashion. Okay, it started out a little enthusiastically with the glue there, but it's fine. All right. I'm going to just get my ruler and make sure this is even at the bottom. And then I'll leave, looks like it's basically a 1/16 of an inch. Sometimes I'll just use a little ruler and put it in there and make sure that I've got an even gap. But that looks really good. Okay. Use my book again. Let's set that off to the side. I gotta put it on a flat surface. And then we'll do the last piece the same way. I'm going to let it dry and I'll be back. Alright, so now we're going to start wrapping. I did want to mention that I nicked the corners. In other words, I just made sure the fabric was not in the scissors, but I just took a little bit of that sharp corner off, so it's not quite as pokey, as sharp. I fully intended to do a rounded corner on this, and I just plain and simply forgot, but I was able to just take a little bit off the corners there. So I was glad about that, but disappointed in myself for forgetting, but it'll be fine. So now we're gonna wrap, and I will wrap a little bit, and especially around the corners, so you can see how I do that, and then I'll finish the rest off camera so you don't have to watch me do that. And this edge is kind of long, so I'm just gonna go ahead and trim some of that off. I'm not being too careful with I could get out my ruler and my rotary cutter, but it doesn't matter too much. It's just me liking that. That's all. All right, so I'm gonna start. I'll just start at this bottom edge, and I'm not gonna glue all the way to this corner because I'm just gonna go this way and do this corner with you. And so we want to leave that corner free for the wrapping part, where you need a little bit of wiggle room. So I'm just going to leave that for now. All right, so I did put some glue on this whole edge, and I'm just smearing it a little bit so it's not too globby on there. All right, so then all I'm going to do is just lift this up onto the glue, nice and tight. And then when it comes to the gap, so I'm going to make sure I've got a little glue down there. I don't think I did that. This one has a little bit of glue already in there, but this one did not. So make sure we got a little glue on there, not a big glob, because you don't want it to show through. And then just make sure to press it with a bone folder or the edge of a ruler or something. Fingernails even work, right? Like this. So get that nice and pressed in. So you don't have a taut sort of gap there, and then you'll be, forcing your book open and closed, possibly ripping something. So make sure you got that nice and dented in on each side. Okay, and then, okay, so this kind of folded up all by itself. And make sure that looks good. Yeah. It was so funny though, because I didn't do that. I must have done it with my the edge of my hand. It's pretty funny, but I think it worked out though. There's no gap or anything. Okay, so then the corner is a little different. Oops, let me peel this back. I should have cut this. So we're going to cut it at an angle, leave just enough space here to wrap around, or to wrap up just a little bit. So, just leave 1/8 of an inch or so, but just cut that off at an angle, and it doesn't matter what the angle is necessarily at all. So bring that up nice and tight. I'm going to put just a tiny bit of glue. Oh, that was kind of a lot, but just a little bit of glue on this edge of the chipboard. Make sure that you get the edge. Okay, so now keep going with this. Just make sure it's all folded up, and then take this little amount that you left, that little 1/8 inch, and just push it into that edge of the chipboard. And then you just continue to wrap. So I'll show you what that looks like just a little ways up on this. So you might have to glue right onto your fabric there, and that's great. Okay, so that edge is nice and tucked into that. Okay, and then just go ahead and bring that up, and then do each corner the same way. You might want to just clip off the angles right away, but and then you've got a nice crisp corner. It's not super sharp because I cut off those, I cut off that little tip, okay, but you got a nice looking corner there. So very easy, and just keep going around the whole book, just making sure you press in on your little gaps here, and we'll take it from there. So as I'm working on this, I realized I didn't really explain about the interfacing. I just used what I had. So as I mentioned, I usually try to get a super lightweight one. Oh, and you can see here this interfacing is coming apart from the fabric, and that's no big deal. I'm just going to have to do 2 lines of glue instead and to lift that up, but that's okay. But what I was going to say is everybody, I think there are a lot of different methods for making your own book cloth or making sure that the glue doesn't seep through. So you just use your favorite method. I really do like the interfacing method, so and I think Cindy uses that method as well. And but just use what you have. Like that's what I'm doing here. I'm using this a little bit thicker than I like, but it's really not been a problem at all. This Shape Flex is working really well for me. So just wanted to mention that as I kept on working, I thought, you know what, I didn't explain that very well. So I'll see you on the other side. All right, so I went ahead and got it all covered, and I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's real cute. That, you know, you can't go wrong when you find cute fabric like that. So it might have been part of this little sewing digital print that I was telling you about. It might be part of that, but anyway, I had this cardstock as well. And at first I thought they did come together, but I'm not sure if they did, but it doesn't matter. But it's got some sewing on it, and I just thought it was really cute. And I thought I would put one going facing this way and one facing this way just for fun. Not that you would ever see them together because the signatures will be in between, but it was kind of cool. So that's what I'm going to use for my inside covers. I cut them the right size. So I just made sure to steer clear from the fold in the book cover itself. Just make sure to steer clear away from that. I will be covering this with fabric, sort of coordinating fabric, so I'm not worried about, you know, this part looking ugly or anything. And I will be gluing that on too. So I thought maybe I might put decoration on the cover, but it is pretty busy, so I haven't really decided. I guess the only way it would work is if I put a background and then maybe a book plate. I might go ahead and do that. So I'm going to search for those things and see what I can come up with. And I did leave this long enough for a pen loop too, so before I glue this on, I am going to figure out the pen loop, which I'll probably make out of craft text. I have, a while ago I had purchased a bunch of craft text, so I know I still have some of that left over, a little scrap of that. So I will figure those things out, and definitely before I glue the back cover on. And that's the other thing too, at this stage you can determine which side you like best, which side you want to be the front and which the back. So that's a tough one. I think I like this one, so this one will be my front. So I will figure those things out and let you know what I came up with. Alright, so all dried. I did attach one of my inside cover pieces, and I wanted to show you how I'm coming along with this. So this is craft text. Craft text is, they call it, I can't remember what they advertise it as, but it's like a paper leather. So it's a very sturdy and very flexible, let's see if I have the piece to show you. Anyway, it's very sturdy and flexible. So you can wash it. So it is so sturdy that I'm comfortable using it for the pen loop, where it's gonna maybe get a lot of, you know, every day maybe a pen going in and out. So so a couple of years ago I bought a pack that had multiple colors in it. So here's the piece I was looking for. I'll show you that in a second. So it has white, black, brown, and tan, and gray. So, and I use this on a regular basis, just for, even for little tiny things like this. So, but look at this color. Wasn't that perfect? So I didn't have to do anything to it. But craft text does come in all those other, like black would have been fine, that dark brown would have been fine. the white, I maybe would, you can ink it, so I would have probably inked that, or you can paint it, so all kinds of stuff. So it's really great. I was thinking just now, it would have been kind of cute to stitch this, but then again, the stitches might get, if you're putting a pen in, the stitches might get caught on the little clip. But anyway, so I just wanted to show you how flexible Craftex is. Isn't that cool? So, but you don't have to use Craftex. You could use a fabric with interfacing loop, a ribbon, maybe layered up a little bit, a ribbon. I probably wouldn't do paper. I don't think that would hold up very well. But look around, use what you have. I bet you'll have something. So now I glued this in, and then I don't know if you can see that, but I did put a little piece of this paper inside of there because I knew that once I got this paper on, it would be, you know, naked under there. So I did put that under there. And all I did, guys, was measure. So I just measured in from this fold here. I measured from down and from this edge here and how wide it is. So I just did some measuring. And then I made my measurements on the back of this and then cut it out with a craft knife. So I just took this and cut out this little, it almost looks like a square, but I think it's a rectangle. But I haven't tried the size. I haven't tried it out yet. So you're here with me trying the size. Okay. You know what? It slips over really well. I do see a little bit of a problem. I think it's, I don't know, it's close. You know what? I might leave it. But can you see how close it is to this edge right here? I was thinking maybe I could cut a little bit more off here. I might do that. But as far as top and bottom, it is a little bit bigger on this side than this side. So, but I think that part doesn't bother me so much. But this is maybe a little too close to the edge, so I'm going to just go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and get my awful cutting mat that's ugly. So I think I'm going to just sliver, just a sliver here. Cut this off. Actually, I think that'll help a lot. And that I didn't use my ruler, so it is not straight right there. Actually, I'm going to need to use something that'll, something that'll let me use a straight edge. Otherwise, I'll go crooked again. There we go. Okay. All right, let's see if this is better. Yeah, much better. Much better. A little bit more shows on the side, but this color is actually pretty good, so I'm happy with that. So the other one, I did ink around the edges just a tiny bit, so I'm going to go ahead and ink. I'm going to especially ink like inside of here. Otherwise it does look sort of unfinished, I think. And since this is stitched paper, I didn't even think about stitching around it before I glued it down. Because it's already stitched, but I mean, I think it still would have been cute though. Alright, so Fabri-Tac for this. Make sure you get right up to the edges. Very important on these end papers, and then for me around this rectangle too. So I'm going to spread that with my finger right up to the edges. Plus that gives it a nice thin layer at the edge so it doesn't ooze out. So just a little bit of work there, and down we go. Yes, I love it. Okay, and really press down so nothing's going to interfere with the pen or the edges. You don't want the edges to start peeling up, so. Okay, so now we have a nice little book. And I see I'm going to have to glue a tiny little piece right there, but I'll just pop a little piece in there. That'll be fine. Actually doesn't look that bad, so. All right, so now we've got our calendar insert and our insert with paper, and that'll be in here, and that'll be a nice little booklet for her. All right, so moving on, I think I'm going to do the eyelets next. So I'm going to pick a fabric for this, glue it down, and then we'll put some eyelets in it. Okay, so I have this brown, medium brown, and I have a tendency to put too much glue here and it seeps through the fabric. So I went ahead and did sort of my book cloth. So I did put that interfacing on the back of this as well. And then I liked the look of the decorative stitching on each side. Plus it's going to hold that interfacing in a little better, because I'm not 100% sure that the gluey side of the interfacing is going to actually hold when I, manipulate this down. And so that decorative stitching is going to serve two purposes, and I thought that was a fun choice. So, and then I'm getting ready for eyelets too. I made a little template, 1/4 of an inch down, and then I don't know, they're probably 5/8 of an inch apart. So I just made a little template, so I make sure to get my holes punched the same top and bottom. And I've got my eyelets here and my puncher, so I'm getting ready for that, but it'll have to dry before I punch. And also I was thinking, so this is just gluing, and I'm going to want to spread this with my finger too. I'm using Fabri-Tac. Probably got a little too much glue right in that. You do want to put some glue down into that space between the spine and the covers. You do want some glue down there so that it doesn't pucker up. But you don't want big globs like the one I just had. And if this dries too quickly, or if it doesn't stick too well, you can always just lift up a corner of that fabric and glue it down. Again, one more time. Not the end of the world. So all I'm doing now is just eyeballing the centering of this. Okay, so I think that's good. And then I'll take my bone folder to help me out with those creases, but you want to make sure to get those creases down so it's easy to fold. And when I quite often don't use interfacing on this application, but I always seem to seep through, so I wanted to make sure. And my interfacing was out and ready to go, so I just put a little scrap on behind there. Okay. I see it's, I did notice that earlier too. So this is a little bit longer than up here, but that's, and I left the edges raw because I like that look, so I did that. And this is looking pretty good. Need a little bit of, little touches of glue here and there, and then I'll have to trim this off a little bit. It doesn't look that bad, but so I'm gonna cut it straight across, still keeping it over the edge a little bit, and then I'll just fringe it up with my fingers. Instead of that ripped look, it's going to be fringed like that. But I think that's good. Just a few A few more dabs of glue here and there. It's always better to put too little glue than too much, so this happens to me quite often where I have to lift up a corner and put a little dab. So, but it's good. Alright, and just this one little corner too. And then that's good. So I also had been thinking about, so after I put the pen in, and what I think I'm going to do is put a belly band up here and make a long skinny notepad, and we're going to hang that over the belly band. And then for this side, I'm going to do a button and a pocket, a large pocket with a little bit of a gusset, and then have a flap coming down, and then put a button and string closure on there for this side. So I'm going to cut those pieces there. See how we have a nice crease, nice easy fold there for the, this does look like a little crooked, so I'll tug at that a little bit. It's not bad though. But I'm going to get those pieces ready, and then we'll glue those on, and then when this is totally dry, I'll get those eyelets in. So you don't need to watch me do eyelets, I'm sure, but so I will hold this up, clip it on, probably, you know, with my clips kind of coming down this way, but I'll clip it on and then punch right through everything, and then to get my holes, and then flip it over this way, do the same thing, and put the holes in there and put in eyelets. So I'll be back with the pieces for our covers. Okay, hi. So things look a little different here on the desk. I'm jumping in because when I was finalizing my video, I realized that I didn't explain this part at all. Actually, I did, and somehow it wasn't recording, so I don't understand what happened, but let me just go over this real quick, how to make the, so this book is done. Because like I said, it's after the fact. So I wanted to show you how I cut and folded the flap and the pocket. So here's a picture of it all done, but I'm just jumping in real quick just to show you that. So my flap, I like them kind of long at the top, so mine is 4 inches wide, and then I made it about 2/3 of the way down. So obviously you can change this up how you like, and then I added a 1/2 inch so that I could glue that flap onto the back of the page. And then, so that's all that is. It's pretty sturdy cardstock, so I could leave this, and it's double-sided, so I could leave this, or I can back this with paper. And then I just cut tiny little triangles in here, just to make sure that those ends don't show through. And then also, if you are going to sew, go ahead and sew before you glue it down. And if you put a button and string closure, like I did here, then that would go on first before you glue it down. So then after you're stitched and after you've got your button and string closure, go ahead and glue it down, and it'll work just like that on the page. Okay, so then the pocket part is a little more complicated, but it's not bad, of course. It's not bad. So I cut it the height that I wanted it, made sure that the flap came over the top and everything. So the height I wanted it. And then you need to add, so the flap is the 4 inches wide, right? See how much wider this pocket is? So you need to add, I'm going to make a little gusset. You don't necessarily have to do that, but so I'm going to add 1/8 of an inch and 1/8 of an inch, one on each side, and then a 1/2 inch on one side, a 1/2 inch on the other, because that's the part I'm going to glue down, and then a 1/2 inch longer at the bottom. So you have to kind of do a little math, figure that out. Your pocket needs to be a little bit bigger. It looks funny right now, but then we score and fold and it'll be perfect. So I'm just going to butt it up to the side here. And score 1/2 inch in, because that gives us our attaching flap. And then score an 1/8 of an inch away from that, and that gives us our gusset. And then turn it around and do the same thing on the other side. 1/2 inch, 1/8 inch. Okay, and then decide which is your top and bottom. I like that for my bottom, so just score 1/2 inch, and that will give you your attaching flap as well. Okay, so those are nice and done. Now you can't see them, so I'm just going to mark it with my pencil so that you can understand what the next step is here. It's hard for me to see it. Looking to see if it's going to show better on the other side. Oops. Totally crooked on that. It's because I'm going against the groove there. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like. So you've got the 1/2 inch, 1/8 inch, and then going up you have the 1/2 inch. Okay, so then what we're going to do is just clip the farthest away from the edge, clip this line, and then the one that goes straight across. Same thing over here. The line, now this one isn't filled in with pencil, but the line that's farthest away from the edge, and then the one that goes straight horizontally. And then you're going to fold. So you got a nice little gusset there. You don't have to put a gusset in if you don't want to, but I think that'll, it's kind of nice to have a little bit of room, and that flap protects everything from falling out. But you can get a couple good sized tags in there, you know, receipts or whatever my sister is planning on putting in there. Okay, so this paper is nice and sturdy. I would probably just leave it with this cardstock. So at this point you can, let me get out my punch. You could put a little thumb grab in here. Not too deep, because you want to make sure your flap is still going to cover that. And then these are the parts that you would glue onto the back of your book. So you can see how these overlap, so it's going to get bulky right there. So just go ahead and give those a trim. I would do more of a deeper angle on these than the other one we did. Oops. Everything's in the way. There we go. And then that way you've got, you know, a nice surface to glue it. So then you could sew around this first. Make sure to put your button and string closure. Line up your pieces. Make sure you're nice and straight. Button and string closure, and then put your glue and just glue it down, and make sure your pieces line up side to side. And then you got a nice little pocket and flap. So let's finish up the rest of it. Okay, I got my pieces done. So that's what this one looks like. And for my, I decided to not do real buttons. I thought they would stick out a little too far. So I had my craft tex out, and there was this brown craft tex in there, so I decided to use that. Nice and sturdy for that. 2 layers of cardstock would work just as well. And then I also put it in with an eyelet, so you can see the eyelet in there. Just put a little eyelet through there. A little helpful thing for me is I made a paper sort of template of my my punch size, and then I folded it in half, and then folded it in half again. In the center I punched a hole, so that's what I used to just, you know, put over my piece, and then I know my hole is in the exact right place. So that's just a little hint that I have for that, because I'm awful at figuring out the center. I am. I don't know why, but I am. All right, so then I attached a little baker's twine to that, so that when this gets put together, it'll be all ready. I decorated the inside flap with that, and then I did put a little strip of decorative paper on the flap, because that will be showing. All right, so I think I'm ready to go ahead and glue. Before I do that, So the back of my eyelet is covered up by this decorative paper, so I'm not worried about that. If you want to punch a hole, if you do it the same way and you want to punch a hole in there, you can, or I just left it. It doesn't bother me that it's filled in with the paper, that you can see the paper through. This one is a pocket, and this feels pretty smooth, but I don't want this metal piece to interfere with whatever's going in and out of the pocket. So I'm just gonna glue a little. And it doesn't have to be like punched the same size. I just had a tendency to grab a scrap and just do it at the same time since my punch was out. But definitely, of course, and I don't have to put the 4 right side up, but I will, because that's what I do. Okay, so just glue that down, make sure it's nice and snug. Otherwise, it will also interfere with whatever goes in the pocket, right? So, and I recommend paper instead of cardstock just because it's thinner and it won't, you know, the paper or whatever goes in the pocket won't interfere with paper as much as it would cardstock, because cardstock's a little thinner. So once again, I've got the paper showing through there, but it doesn't really bother me. I'm gonna see if, just so you all know, okay, I'm going to see if this would actually punch. No, it won't re-punch because now the hole is smaller because of the metal ring around it. So anyway, so I am ready to attach this, and I thought I would just do that with you. You can give these edges just a little snip to make sure they don't show on the other side. And I did ink the edges on this. And I could have waited to sew until I had my background or this backing piece on, but it's fine either way. Okay, so this comes up fairly close to the top. Maybe 1/8 of an inch down, so I definitely don't want it to show on the other side. Trying to make sure that's nice and even, nice and flat. Okay, and then this will glue all 3 of these sides, and I did ink these because those little gussets will show every now and again, I'm sure. Oh, this is another thing, we could also angle these little flaps too. We'll see what it looks like. See what I mean? You can angle. In fact, I think I'm just going to do that because they always do interfere. Now that I have some glue on there, so just nip it. Give it a little haircut. All right. Okay, now we're going to get those flaps glued down. And I probably attached that string a little prematurely, but on the other hand, I also wanted, I was looking through what colors I had and I found the brown and I got too excited, so I just attached it on there. Okay, so we're gluing that. And let me get this bone folder that I have and make sure I've got everything flat and make sure it's not oozing and all that good stuff. Perfect. Make sure to get down in the bottom part, smooth it down to the back. Okay. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. Let's make sure it's lined up. And looks like we need to come over just a tad, so I'll do that. Good. That looks good. Okay, now we've got it. And then the button and string, you can make it a figure 8. Oops, figure 8. Or you can just do it straight. So there's that. I think that'll be cute. I might put a little snippet up here, something. But there we go. So we've got a nice protected sort of pocket there. All right. Make sure that I'm nice and even. I love that. Looks good. This little idea is pretty fun. It's exciting to get it going. Oh, before I came back on the camera, I was going to do the front piece, but that's okay. I'll get that done in a second. All right, so the next thing, we were going to do a notepad here with a belly band. So I'm going to find some paper, you know, fairly sturdy, or 2 cardstocks glued together or something. We're going to get that, and then I'll make a booklet, and I'll show you how I attach that on there. All right, so I made a belly band. So look, this little shoe fit right on there. Isn't that awesome? And so these are fake brad, like they're real brads, but they won't be going through the book cover or anything like that. I just literally just poked a hole with my awl and then poked them through. I'm going to put a little line of glue here, a little line of glue there, and that's going to glue right on there, so it'll keep those brad prongs from going sideways. So they're just going to go straight up and down, and then they won't show at all. One thing I usually do though is I take the end of my ink blender and push it down real hard so that it's as flat as possible. All right, so I sewed around that and I inked around it. So we're going to get a line of glue on each side of this. Okay, and then, so I measured it, so hopefully nothing will interfere here. I did just repeated myself there, but you know what I mean. So I made some papers, so I'm just trying to figure out how far down to put this belly band, about right there. Oops, I got my shoe upside down. I don't want that. Okay, so that shouldn't interfere with the pen or the spine. Okay, so let me get that weighted for just a second. All right, so then this is my little notepad I wanted to make, so just literally just scraps. In fact, as I pulled some of these out of the trash. So, and I kind of like the look of having them jagged at the end, so I did rip them at the bottom. Now what I'm going to do is staple my stapler with the thin staples. I'm just going to staple these pages together near the top. And then I'm going to take another scrap that I folded in half, and I just ripped the edge here. I'm going to glue that right on top of there. I don't have to glue it all the way down the paper, but I'm going to glue it. And it is too big too, but I'll trim that up in a sec. So I just went down a little ways past that in the front. I'm going to attach it like this and just give that a trim. So I have kind of a decorative type edge there, and then in the back it's just a straight line. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is, let me take that glue off there. I'm going to make a sort of anchor piece. I have some scraps of this, and it doesn't have to be super long, just something to maybe about that long, and then I'm going to double it and trim that off. Make sure this fits down, and it does. So I'm trying to make sure that my belly band is going to stay too. Fact is, I might, since that's not dry yet, I might just tuck it under here like that. So center this. So I just glued those together just to make it a sturdier piece. That's all I did. And then I just sandwiched it in between this topper here. Okay, so now I have a nice little notepad, kind of decorative in the front. And I'm trying to be gentle with this. Actually, that might not work either, now that I think about it. I'm gonna get this glue off. Be careful. Yeah, I think I usually leave this loose. Let me just check this out. I haven't made one of these styles for a long time. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to leave this flap loose, which means I need to make sure that's anchored down here a little bit better. This is really just covering up the staples. So it's glued down on the front piece, not on the back. Okay. I'll erase the glue in just a second, but for now, so this is what it looks like, okay? And then that's just gonna tuck right down in that belly band and fold over like that. So now there's a nice pen and notepad, and there's our pocket, and now the cover. So I'm gonna do a little bit of sewing of the buttons. I'm gonna sew the buttons on and then figure this out, and then I'll show you the end product. Okay, I zoomed us in a little bit so I can show you the finished product. So on the cover, front cover, I did decide to do the book plate. I used some alcohol ink though, and I made it black. And I think I like that better, a little bit more contrast. And it is layered up with some brown, which you can't see too much, but it makes a nice little outline. And then the Osnaburg fabric on top of that, which could be muslin too, would work just fine. And then these three vintage buttons. So I think I showed you the closure already. I did decide to make a dangle. So you can see I've got, can you recognize the Tim Holtz stamps for the sewing machine and the dress form? So I just stamped them onto Shrinky Dink and put marker, filled them in with marker, and then shrunk them, and so they came out this nice little size. And so I made some little bead charms and just put some other charms that I had on here as well. Just a little suitcase. Most of them are actually bead charms, and then the Shrinky Dinks. So I kind of like the sound. It's almost like wind chimes, right? All right, so then the back is plain with the fabric. And then we have our button and string closure here. I haven't tucked anything into there yet. I might not. It's really for her to fill in, so I might give her some little freebies to go with it. And then, so here's the calendar. Here's the regular. No, I was trying to remember if I called these signatures before, but they're not really signatures, they're inserts because they go into a TN. So if I did that before, that is my mistake. I did bind these with a gold embroidery thread. My elastics are kind of a rose color, which totally match these little buttons here, and I had just enough to do the inserts, and so I was pretty happy with myself. I was pretty excited to use that. So anyway, so here's just plain papers, you know, mixture of digital prints. Oh, I see something I need to do. So Hobby Lobby prints their name and the barcode and stuff on their back of their papers, and I don't think they take into account that people use them double-sided, like. So I'll just put a little washi tape or something over that. I just noticed that. And then on the back we have our pen loop, which we did earlier, and then this notepad. And you can do this whatever method you like. You can buy a little notepad for this, or even just put a little tall skinny pocket. This was kind of a you don't have to get as do it exactly like this, but just you can actually just fold long strips of paper over the top of this and make a little notepad. Anyway, so that is in there, and that's my little calendar folio for my sister. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you give it a try. If you do, we'd love to see pictures on our Facebook group. So we're Facebook, Instagram, and Etsy shop, and it's all Ideas times 2. So if you look us up, Ideas times 2, on all those platforms, you will find us. So I think that's it. I literally just used scraps, things I had laying around, kind of made do with what I had, and I was just very fortunate to have this beautiful fabric. But cereal boxes and scraps and leftover papers, and this can be awfully fun. So let's see. So as far as the calendar goes, you could use one of the ones you buy from Dollar General or the dollar store. Has a nice size, and then just take it from there. Just take it from there and make it your own. If you don't want to mess around with digital calendar. So either way. But anyway, take care everybody, and we will catch you in the next video. Goodbye.